Alright you lot, don't forget to give us a follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and while you're at it, give us a 5-star rating. Trust me, it really does help us out.
Obviously, the question I want to ask is, what was the first like big cock up or big mistake that you made? But I guess it's not like one big thing, right? Were there many weekends where you'd look at what you've done and realise, oh, like I've really cocked up, or vice versa, and had an absolute worldie and pulled? Because I guess with a strategy team, you can look at it and be like, oh, they pulled out a worldie this weekend.
Yeah,
I guess from your job's a bit different.
I think,
There's nuances, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we kind of talked about it before. It's like my job was making the car go less slow. You don't need to know that I'm there. And if you know that I'm there, it's because I've messed up.
Yeah.
You know? And that doesn't bother me, because like, you see,
unglamorous, but necessary.
But it doesn't matter. But it's still a super critical role. It's rewarding and it's empowering. But you don't. All you do is have howlers. You don't have, look at me, I made it a big difference. And that's a lot of people I saw in university got that idea. It's like, we'll just go in there, we'll be heroes, and it's like, no. And I didn't know what to expect. And I get in there, it's like, wait, I can't be a hero. I can only be a total wanker. That was
What a position to be in.
That's it. Exactly. You're either a ghost or you're a prick.
Yeah,
there's no in between.
But that's okay, because there's still, when you know that you do a good job, it's very clear. And I had some of those weekends where you just go into the weekend. It's like you start off on the back foot with brake balance maps or something and car setup. You and the race engineer put your heads together, talk to the driver, and you come up with a plan. You rock up in P2, it's a little bit better. P3, it's close. And then you're like, right, qualifying, P3 to qualifying is a really short gap. And you're like, right, what are we doing? What's our game plan? What are our biggest issues? How do we tackle them? And we both come at them with different parts of the car. And you rock up and qualify, and the driver's like, that is perfect. And they go and have a stinker of a great qualifying session. You're like,
a good stinker.
You just look at each other. Race engineer, performance engineer, like, nice. The driver's happy. And it's like, even if you don't have a good result and you know that you nailed everything, you know that you got the most out of it. That's a super rewarding feeling. But nobody's like, hey, look at the performance engineer. He did such a great job. It's like, nobody knows who you are. It's fine.
Is there a driver that you had like a particularly amazing connection with, that you feel like you just always had that?
I honestly, working with Max was like that. Like, we just like, I don't think I ever let him down massively on anything. Like, we got to a point where the communications were super concise and minimal. Because I could look at stuff, I'd show him something, and just be like, yeah, that's it. And it was like, once he had a lot of CPU and ability to focus on the problems rather than just tell you everything he didn't like. He could get to the point where he would tell you the things that he thought were the most important to go faster, and helped really focus the team.
Do you reckon that sim racing experience that he's got maybe helps? Because did he like the CPU? Data?
Yeah. No, he wasn't like super into the data, but like if you would get into a nitty gritty, like a simple overlay, you would focus on where he needs performance and what's bothering him, and does this work or does that not work? And he has a good database of the tests you've done and what they did. So in terms of driver, we talk about it like as in terms of the drivers, how much CPU they're using. If a driver's out there and he needs 100% CPU to get the car around the track as fast as possible, and he's rapid, that's good. But if you have a driver that's only needing 80% of the CPU, and he's not much slower, and then that other 20% of the CPU is used to process all that information live and then tell you as soon as he comes into the pits, I'll take the slower guy.
Well, because I think you've got a really interesting and unique insight, because you've worked with Max, you've also worked with Checo. They're now teammates.
Yeah.
That gap seems to be growing.
Yeah. And
it's big regardless. Checo's a fantastic driver. He's got plenty of years in the sport. There's no questioning his talent.
One of the tire whisperers of his age.
Is that true, by the way? Or is that...
he was super good on tires.
Super good
always.
on tires.
And you saw that, him establishing, he always seemed to capitalize on those performances when Hülkenberg was not particularly able to. Hülkenberg needed a lot more information to manage the tires than Checo did. Checo had a supernatural feel for it. Now, that's not a silly narrative. That is an actual
based on that. Yeah. But why is that gap? Why do you think that gap is what it is between Max and Checo? What do you think the difference is?
Yeah. So I don't actually know for a fact, because I'm not there right now.
Yeah, of course.
But looking on the outside, looking in and speculating. We know for a fact that Max can deal with a car which is quite pointy and unstable and nervous. Now, they're not driving that car to the point of instability, because that usually costs lap time. But imagine, like there's a narrative that they're developing a car for Max, which is interesting, but I don't remember seeing a team really being able to pinpoint developing a car specifically for a driver's needs, because a lot of those things of the DNA of the car are very deep-rooted in long development processes. And then the ability to hit those very specific things to fix that driver's problem take months of development. And you don't always, when you bring a new front wing or you bring some new furniture for the front of the floor, the flicks and boards and everything else, you don't always hit. So to answer the question, what's the difference? I think Max, let's say they've increased the performance of the car quite a bit. They're adding development to the car. They're keeping up with Ferrari. Merc are developing as well. You see the midfield kind of just sitting where they are, about 1% off in terms of pace. As they're elevating the car, Max is just able to drive it this much more unstably, with more instability, which is faster. A pointy car goes fast. Whereas you look back, specifically Jeddah, understeer problems, lots of issues with getting front end in the car to help lean on the car and be confident in it. Checo loved it. Monaco, the exact same thing. And there was even a whole discussion about the Pirelli 18-inch tires.
Yep.
They're known to be very weak on the front end. So teams are having to say, well, we thought it would be this. The front tire was weaker than we thought it would be. So now we need to develop programs on the car, aerodynamics, suspension, everything else to help put front end in the car in the right places. And now that Max is at that level, they've increased the performance of the car. And Max is like, well, I can drive it with this much more instability and pace. And he's able to put time into Checo.
Because this is what I worry about more from a constructor's long-term point of view with Red Bull, is that if they're not able to find this driver that can seemingly, because they've gone through Gasly, they've gone through Albon, and Perez, that gap is still pretty significant when you look at how close, Carlos is to Charles or how close George is to Lewis.
Yes.
I worry that, do you think there is something inherent in that car that only Max seems to, or is Max just that good?
I don't know. And I can't actually answer that. Like I think he's probably one of those guys. A lot of people disagree with me, but I've spent a lot of time working with him and I don't have that many comparisons.
Yeah.
With somebody with a lot of experience, I still don't think I have all the information.
If you don't know, then nobody.
Who's going to know? We could do that.
F1 Twitter, I think they might think they know.
Yeah, exactly. But we could do that. We could do that whole thing where we, do that whole loop where Nigel Mansell is half a second faster than Nigel Mansell if you do all the offsets to his teammates throughout the season.
Yeah.
That's what you get into, and that's impressive. That's a broken. But Nigel Mansell is actually half a second faster than himself in the right conditions. Which it's one of those things. It's a super interesting question. But we're going to be sat there scratching our heads for a very long time because we're never going to know.
But that's part of it. That's part of sport, isn't it? I love it.
And it makes a great conversation to speculate about. It opens up a lot of doors and avenues to explore all these things. But I don't think anybody can hedge that bet too hard at all. I think he's an exceptional talent. But he's also going up. Like, Albon is good. Gasly is good. Perez is very good.
Sorry, can you say that first bit again? Albon is good.
Yeah.
Albon, say it again.
Alex is good. He's
sensational.
Alex is an awesome driver. He's got a lot of CPU.
Keep going. All that CPU. That's what I need.
And he's got some extra RAM. He's gonna lose an appendix soon. But
he's losing RAM.
Weight saving is fun.
Yeah, exactly. But we're never gonna know. But it's interesting because he does seem to have the ability in that car to put a gap to his teammates every time consistently. Ricardo. Since then,
mad.
It's
impressive.
It's actually impressive.
Yeah, genuinely.
Like I feel like Max this year for me, like he's really shown that he's got that complete package. Because there were at times last year where I thought he overstepped the mark in terms of his racecraft,
aggression, everything else.
And I, in my opinion, I think that was a strategy because Lewis is top of the tree and he's the young gun coming in and he wants to kind of get in your face. Yeah. I think we see it in lots of different sports when
I think when you're almost like an underdog in that situation, you have to assert yourself in a different way. Like I feel like he's been able to establish himself as like the front runner now. He doesn't even need to be as aggressive like that.
Without going on too much about the Red Bull Max thing, I think his first seasons with the Red Bull, he was not particularly refined, lots of mistakes, lots of collisions, lots of crashes. Yeah, exactly.
It's mean for a reason.
But I liken that to his approach when he would show up in practice one. In practice one, he would be on the limit.
This is what Dan was saying last week as well.
You know, exactly. He'd be on the limit immediately.
Yeah.
And that would catch Ricardo off. He's like, why is this guy going mental? You know, in free practice one, the wings are broken off the car. Then you extrapolate that further into his first seasons in the Red Bull. He was over the limit a lot, and he got a bad rap for that. But as a package, as a driver, I think he's matured. He's refined. His performances, like them or love them, they're pretty damn good.
But I think this is what Christian said about Max. I think it's what Mattia has said about Charles as well. Like, you'd rather a driver that is maybe occasionally guilty of driving at 101% and getting it wrong and dialing them back than someone who isn't confident enough to kind of push to those levels.
Well, it's harder to get performance out of someone that doesn't have it.
Exactly.
Slightly takes.
It's a lot more to ask.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. So I feel like that's the perfect analogy for that.